welcoming, the kids are engaged. Are we ever going to get that here? I know, give it
That's
time,
the
give it
latest
time.
question. Yeah.
But how are we going to get the time when, I mean, this is the teachers' jobs, so they need to be paid for their time. This is our passion, we want education for our children. But we don't have the training to give the teachers the training. So we have to have Dr. Parent or somebody come in, and when do they have the time outside of trying to establish all their curriculum and behavior issues that are not being addressed, and so many communication, we don't have that. I mean, it makes me cry. I pulled out my two older kids because I can't do it. And I have one younger one, and the bright hope I have is second grade, and I pray that they're going to stay because they have it. I mean, they work well together. They're integrating everything you talked about. They're doing. But the older grades don't have that. I don't see how we're going to get that, especially if our head of school is not communicating. Communication comes from her down.
Well, what I'll tell you is this: what they're doing is what we expect, right? They
Exactly.
are the exemplar of integration for the school, and Mrs. Cummins knows. People have raved about these two,
And they're here tonight.
and you guys are here, right? So it's a known thing. So that's what we want to see. I mean, you asked Karen, what is classical education? You guys are doing that integration very well.
And
We
the fact
hear
that
it
you're
constantly.
asking,
Right.
that you're wanting to know.
And we've had, and there are teachers, I mean, we can tell who's engaged by who asks the most questions, right? When teachers ask, what is a classical education? I know which ones ask, and some really are, some know already because from past experience, but some really are trying to learn it, and you can tell they really want to do it. We had a teacher that is no longer a first grade teacher that would email me like on a weekly basis about what did you mean about this part of the science curriculum? And I love that question. You know why? Because I knew she read it. I knew she was actually engaged with what we were trying to do, right? And so that would be great to have more of that happening, folks that because then we know that it isn't just, people aren't kind of reverting back to old habits that would be in a regular public school, but are really engaging with the new way. And that's what I'd love to see more of. So I don't know if that answers it, but the bottom line is, you're right. We have a lot of growing to do to get everyone as engaged in that. And I'm open to whatever suggestions we can do. Again, I'm playing tapping
Maybe
in.
some more
I feel like,
positive emails about our positive teachers.
well, yeah. So we started that last year, and we started a communications group to do that. And I don't know what happened, but we had a person who was coordinating and was supposed to go, and the teachers were going to send us. We had asked the teachers would send us cool things they were doing, so we could highlight them every month or every couple weeks. And unfortunately, we got one or two of those out. We got one with Mrs. Straw and one with someone else, and then it kind of fizzled. So I agree with you. We need to renew that effort, but just know that was started by the board to try to do that thing.
So if anyone would like to be on a newspaper committee, where the kids could kind of interview and the kids could write articles, and I mean, I think that Griffin scripts or whatever, if we could have,
What's that?
well,
Well,
if we
what
have kids take it
what
over.
happened to the Griffin Gazette? We got it maybe 3 months, and I know this is something Mrs. Cummins is putting together. I'm sure she has other things that are important, but that would be a beautiful tool to recognize teachers for their wonderful
But think
components.
about who wouldn't read it if their kids are writing it. They'll read it. So,
Right. I wanted to mention something though that I really think needs everybody's full attention, because this is our second year. We have middle schoolers and the older grades. I specifically want to address the older grades. They've come from different backgrounds. They're older, and we're now expecting those students to be fully engaged into our jams and philosophies, and that's not going to happen. They already have some other schools that have taught them, whatever background they're coming. So our kindergartners and first graders are perfect at it. They're sponges. Well, sorry, they're sponges.
That kind of goes on what you were asking about the older grades, and it's very difficult to, like you're saying, you take a fourth grader out from where they've been for 5 years, K through
Right.
4, and you're plopping them into this new thing, and the rigor that the expectations were. I mean, Tom said the dual scores are 30% higher kids that were like awesome off the charts all of a sudden are barely meeting the bottom end of our spectrum for the dillies. And so they're like all of a sudden, well, wait a minute. And so it's very hard as teachers to reach, how are they supposed to keep up with the rigor that we want them to get when you're dealing with kids who have come from, and every single school in the county sent kids here, and you had some kids who knew a lot, who were very well versed, and then you had kids who come here who had the same curriculum, but they, for some reason, didn't latch onto it. And so the teachers have this huge spread. I've never had a gap of kids as wide as I had last year. I had a student who did not know the sounds of letters in second grade, and I had kids who could read Harry Potter and talk to you on a deep level about it. Huge. And it's very difficult as a teacher to address that spread and to get everybody feeling motivation begins with success, because if you're teaching where they have to be to the rigor that we've started here, it's very difficult to teach someone down here when you want them to achieve here, because how far back do you have to go?
So
Yeah, I would
your
say-
argument, though, but what you're saying is also telling me that leveling makes sense to me, because then you would have less of a job in two classes, because you could tighten the span, and then you'd have two groups versus three, or where, I don't know, I'm just trying to
But
figure out.
we need to
how-
emphasize, the school, Mrs. Cummins, our resources, we need to emphasize more on those higher grades to give the teachers the help that they need to be able to get the whole all 20 students the same level of education, same level of attention, same level of whatever they need. And I think that, I don't think they're getting it, and that's why we're seeing so many complaints from parents, from the children from the older grades. And it's frustrating, because they're all frustrated.
Right.
There's kind of
But
two.
I can also, just to interject, again, when we go back to what you said about the parents and the education, and we've taken that to heart, because I never really heard it expressed that way until I came here, that the number one educator in your child's life is you as a parent. So if you see that your child has a huge deficit in math or reading, it's not productive for that child to succeed if it's an attack, not an attack, I don't mean it like that, to the teacher, or my child's not learning to read, what else can you do? Or we have to make this plan that he gets 40 extra days to learn how to do something. As a parent, we're only with your children 110 minutes a day. That's it for our class. If you want your child to be successful in math and reading, and they're not making that goal, then you have to, can I hire a tutor? Is there a retired teacher down the street that can help? Your child probably needs supplements to bring them up to where the rigor is here at FCCS. And I mean, that's just as
But
hard
that's
as
the
to swallow.
communication. You have to communicate it to
But if
a
your child's
triangle.
grades are tanked, then you're like, whoa, what's going on? And I know that there's problems in the grades, but, and what they're producing, but it's very difficult to reach 20 students, and even if you do level, to reach that. But as a parent, and I'm a parent, I'm a grandparent, so I know, and Miss Julia does this with her kids, you have to, it's your job, we're kind of your helpmate, your tool to make it successful and to guide in the ways that we know are best, or we've researched and found out that work. But if your child is not being successful, then you need to look at how can you implement it at home, instead of saying to the teacher, it's too much homework. And I'm just saying this because we hear this a lot, it's too much homework, we can't do that in the amount of time that was given. Instead of excusing what they don't have, finding a way to boost them up to where they are. And it's especially true in the upper grades, because you come from all different places and all different levels, and they're not used to that. But as teachers, we need the parents to be very supportive and say, he's not getting this, I need a tutor, what do you got?
And getting a tutor is not being a bad parent. We came here
No,
from Michigan.
this is a perfect
My
example.
son is in the magnet program. My husband is a master's in mathematics and organic chemist. I'm a math and science teacher. I have a math tutor for 2 kids. Both my science. And the math tutor started in 4th grade, because my husband, and then I go to the tutor and I grade, and I hear him talking to her, and I'm saying, your father just told me.
Now,
that
do you
last
feel
night."
comfortable, do you feel comfortable recommending to the teacher, to the parents, I would really encourage you to seek out, with whatever resources you have, a tutor for your child this summer. Or do you feel comfortable making that suggestion to a parent?
And I will tell you, it depends on the parent.
It does. Some are
Because-
well
But
received,
that's,
some
well,
are not.
wait a minute, that's not helping the child.
I
Yeah.
know, but you could go to a parent and you could tell them that, the very next thing you know, it's.
Because
they
you know,
call
our
somebody and
society
they
has
call me
changed,
and blah, blah,
the
blah, blah.
society has changed.
You're right.
Back,
Right.
you know, 30 years ago, if the child came home with a bad report card, the parents were on
Right.
top of their
Oh,
child
yeah.
and saying, what is going on?
Now
Nowadays,
it's
if a
call
child
the
comes
teacher.
home with a bad report card, they're going
Call the
to you and saying, what are you doing wrong?
Absolutely.
And I think as parents, you would need to ask teachers also, do you feel comfortable asking the teacher? Do you think my child would benefit from a tutor, or what else can we do to help? And
Of course.
really want true, when teachers have had their hands slapped so many times, when we tell them what we truly think, then all of a sudden, like you're saying,
Even though it goes to the
we're the bad guy. You know,
So
because
that-
my child can't do this.
But that's the
it's your
society,
fault.
that's
Right.
not,
That's
And
the
so my
So
heart
part
was,
of
when
our
we came here,
challenge, yeah.
was that we were gonna have that, those parents who are back 30 years ago saying, I support you in what you do, what can I do to help my child be successful? And if the parents, and the parents here are all better because you're here, but there are parents in
How many aren't
school who do not believe that. And so as parents, you need to kind of spread that to
but
the parents,
that's
that
because we're not.
We have
in
two
a
tasks,
society.
right, as a school?
Relationship building that can happen though, because I
Yes.
feel like it's harder when I have a personal relationship with you
Yes.
as a teacher and you and me as a parent for me to feel that way. But when I don't know you, I don't
Right.
even have any contact with you.
and then all of a sudden you
Which
get-
goes
then
back
all of
to
a sudden,
socializing.
You know, so I think that that's sometimes where, and I
Goes back
think
to that.
the divide gets wider
Yes.
as we become fearful to say what we really think or believe about what that child needs.
I agree wholeheartedly.
And then you get it all at the meetings.
Right, yeah. we
Yeah,
get a
and
lot
then
of-
everyone comes from, wow.
And then go at you.
And there is, and there's,
We-
it's
we had a
unfortunate.
conference- We had a conference this past November with a very
Oh, this
sharp,
was awesome.
sharp student, and she sat down and she looked at us, she goes, she was like, she goes, this is a lot of work. And I'm like, we're like, for who, you or this student? She goes, both. And she said, she goes, my husband and I really had to think and talk about this, because we realized that this is a commitment, that
That's
me
the-
and my husband, not just the mom and the dad, both have to sit down every night with those children, look at that agenda, and check it off, or highlight it, or whatever you do, and go through every single item. And she says, we're doing it. She goes, but, it was tough. But if you talk to her now, and we saw her again, the curve has gotten much better, because, the kids are better now, they know how to come home, they know how to pull up the agenda, they know how to do stuff.
They've been
And
trained.
these skills that you're teaching in second grade, think how valuable they will be in middle school.
But just think about how
And-
great the students will be that you're gonna get in second grade.
Oh, we keep telling the younger kids, we're like, oh, when you get these
Yeah.
seventh graders, you're just
You're gonna love them.
Yeah.
The ones, by the time they get to seventh grade,
Yes, yes.
Yeah.
Our
they're gonna
second
teach
graders,
themselves.
our second graders will tell us, that they are quieter in the halls than the fifth, sixth, and seventh graders. And they will tell us that they, are, and are they gonna be like that? No, they're not going to. That's what it tells me.
Yeah, to the cultural aspect, there's two main
Yeah.
tasks, right?
Yeah.
You're informing students and you're forming them, right? And so the fifth, sixth, seventh graders haven't been as
Mhm.
encultured
Yes.
into our culture. So part of
Yep.
classical education, now, if you're in Catholic school, you're enculturing them in the Catholic tradition. If you're here, you're enculturing them in more of a secular version of the true, the good, and the beautiful. That I don't think has maybe happened as much perhaps throughout the school. I mean, this is the first some people have ever heard of these things.
Yes.
And it's 2 years into the
That's
school.
horrible.
So, I mean,
There's
it's
just a
an
huge
issue.
difference from last year. When I was
Is it
when I was doing math facts last year, they were terrible. They were awful. But this year, we have a much more positive attitude. So it's just every year gets a little bit better, but it is tough now for grades.
Maybe we'll take a couple more questions. Please ask my wife some more questions. She has a very good perspective on this issue.
Well, maybe we can answer this, but one of the things that I got out of this, that the schools we need, the book, is that cohesion between the grades is this super utmost thing that a school needs to accomplish. Is at the end of grade 1, every single student needs to know all of these specific things, all of them, to be successful and to snowball into second grade. don't know what my question is per se, but I just like, that's gonna be really important to me. And, as far as the academics go and my daughter goes, so.
And all the descriptions that are back there on that table, now, I don't know that parents have had access, and we sent it out, but I don't know if people are going through that. Perhaps we could have the grade level teachers send out a synopsis
Yeah.
of that. I mean,
The
honestly,
goals
so our
and-
issue is we don't want to get, as a board, there's this philosophical issue, right? Because on the one hand, it's our baby, we know how we want it to run. On the other hand, people get mad if we step in and say, well, this and that and the other ought to be happening. And so that's something I felt we should have happened, is that when you come here for back to school night, you're handed a packet
Yeah.
saying, here's what your kids are gonna learn for the year, by a semester or whatever, and the teachers would,
And then
take what
so
we gave them and
as-
maybe
it's also
summarize it.
parents,
Right.
if
But-
they fall
yeah.
behind, you gotta catch them up.
But how is that any different, like when you go to a pediatrician for their annual checkup, there is a sheet, what your child at age 2, 3, 5, 6 should be at, so you look at it, you can answer it for yourself, and the doctor obviously looks at it with his lens, and that's fine, and how is that any different than
Right.
that for us to know as parents?
Oh, absolutely.
Where our children should be. But I do have a question for you. Between your school, and my sons have attended a Christian school, so I feel the triangle with a religious school is greater. And when you speak about, when you walk in, you feel it. Yeah, between the Montessori and Waldorf and any religious school, you feel it when you walk in. They have a very distinct feeling. We're not there yet.
Right.
Let's just be honest. So, that being said, our triangle is a little slim here. We don't have, like, when my children, when they went to the Christian school, we had the church. That was an extension of our triangle, and that worked. Great. Now, between your school and you know very much about our school, what would you, now forget that you're a parent, forget that you're Tom's wife.
I often do.
She often does, so this is normal.
What would you suggest as an outsider that understands schools and everything, would you suggest that school needs the most urgent?
A welcoming environment. I
Thank
think
you.
that's what you
So
need.
more socializing, would you say amen to that?
I think that's a piece of this, yes. I think it starts at the door, and I think that and I will say this, like when I walk into the office, I don't feel unwelcome.
No.
Like I feel welcome when I walk in there, but I think it needs to be more FaceTime with everyone outside even.
Yeah.
I would like that, like just me as a parent. I know like for us, it's walk up the stairs, it's good morning, and we're all out there, and how you doing? It's good to see you, we're so glad you're here today.
Yeah, when we drive through Carline, or we drop our children off, and there are 3 teachers, faculty members, stuck together, 3 of them clustered together by the door, no eye contact with the students nor the parents. I mean, that's not a welcoming gesture or posture. So yeah, definitely, this might be more implemented, and but I agree with you.
I'll assume responsibility for it, but we haven't, you know what I mean? Like, I agree that shouldn't happen, and we as a board have talked about it, and we've conveyed that sort of feedback. You can answer for me if that has changed, so.
Yeah, I did.
Yeah.
I do think it changed.
Just a quick comment, I think, I appreciate all the comments, I think everyone's doing an excellent thing, but at the same time, to some degree, I think we have to give ourselves a break to some degree too, because we are only 2 years in, and if, like the comments you made about when, you have that rubric of where your child should be, let's look at Albert Einstein when he was a kid, he didn't meet any of those, but look where he ended up. So I think we have to realize we're on a journey, and we're like a couple steps in, and we're climbing the mountain. It's hard, and we're figuring it out, we're slipping on stones or rocks, so we're getting there. But I mean, and part of that too, we have to look at I think the logistical things. I don't know how your school is when you walk in, but maybe it's not logistically set up like we are. We have a desk there physically, so even if someone's looking at you, they're looking at the desk first before they're looking at, it's not necessarily by design, it's not really set up that way. And if he's working all day, when he comes for him to say, he's been doing 50, 100 cars, well, come to think, I mean, he's been working all day, so logistically,
He
it's not
does actually
necessarily.
say hi to everyone.
No, but I'm saying it's cold out there, you know what I mean? I'm just saying the logistical
I
things.
can't,
of
otherwise everybody in the
just-
school hears me.
Yeah. The practicality of certain aspects of what we're looking for the school to be may not necessarily be there simply because it's just not logistically feasible.
Yeah,
He-
yes and no, so.
Right now.
He's perfectly right, because like, I mean, Mrs. Brown and I always hang out in the hall and read our kids and stuff like that, but we had, I think it was around spring break, we had a lot of parents that were gone, which was fine, and we had a bit of a panic, and so I went to Mrs. Brown and I said, oh, we need to do something. So what do? I sent all 20 of my kids into her class. She's got 40 kids, and I'm out there doing Caroline, which was great, because I got to actually see some of the parents, got to talk to
It
the
was
parents.
fun when we did that.
Yeah. Okay, well, you know, so, but you know, I liked it too, because I could say science test tonight, you know, and I could connect with them. So I actually would like to do Caroline, but it's not possible unless I dump 20 kids on Mrs. Brown. And I know that you can't have an adult in the classroom, because that's a safety thing, so maybe that's what
But
we do though.
isn't
We
that
just-
beautiful? So wouldn't you like that type of a setting?
Yes.
Maybe not in Carline and dumping 20 students on Mrs. Brown,
Yeah.
but having a setting that is that casual,
Yeah.
where you can have little small
Yeah.
talks with
You don't want to hold the Caroline up, because you gotta keep moving.
No, you gotta keep moving, and
Yeah, don't
And I
slow
know,
down.
I'm fast, you can ask Jesus, I'm pretty good at
Otherwise they get frustrated parents.
so, but that's what we're missing.
Yeah.
Well, and
One
I
of the
think
things,
we
I think
need,
that comes back to that triangle thing. If more parents were volunteering for Caroline, then teachers might have that opportunity to come out and say, hey, you know, and be more,
And some
more
teachers are
flexible
more
in their schedule.
wanting to do that, like for example, Mrs. Blacks is hosting this month in her home, a party for volunteers. That's her doing.
well, and I think it comes back to we're 2 years young. And it's a little bit at a time.
Growing
And
pains.
yes, and they're painful at some times. But I think it takes the communication, just that we've seen here tonight, to get to our goal. And I think we will achieve it.
Yeah,
But
I
we
think
have
so.
to take a little bit at a time and not be so quick to throw blame as to find a solution. And it's hard, because it's
Less
human nature.
pointing fingers and
It's
finding
human
a
nature.
solution.
Yeah, I mean,
Try to
we want to be
pull-
encouraging,
try to pull
but there are
the
things that, and I will tell you, I mean, there are encouraging things, and there are also things that really surprise me. For instance, we did the poll for the teachers, and you know, you were in the meeting with me about it. I mean, we've been told by our head of school, and it was reflected in the poll, a significant number of our teachers have never read the application. And that was flooring to me. It's been 2 years. Like, there are lots of things we can be slow on, but
Well,
not having read the application should not be one of them,
But I
right?
think the growing pains, I think they will.
So I'm hoping that in the summer reading that people do,
Yeah.
they'll at least read the first, 20, 30 pages that are kind of the meat of it, and then some of the research. I'm really hoping that will become more prominent.
Like, I started in January, so I probably didn't have the right package coming in, but all the new teachers that came in this year did not get a hard copy or told it's here. I got it from Tara, because I've been asking for it, from administration, and I just haven't got it. You should be out on a hard drive or something.
It is on your hard drive, yeah.
We didn't know where it is.
Junior,
We can't
well,
find
it was the first year.
I'm reading it right now.
But regardless, there are things like that
But if
we
you
didn't
ask
find out
for it, it
until a
doesn't
month
happen.
ago that was an issue, so now we're like, Tara's going and printing out
Great.
copies. If we had just known, and then like, for instance, novels that we had expected to be read in certain grade levels that weren't,
Right,
no one told us they didn't have them.
right.
We didn't know. I mean, we assumed, we had ordered them, and they all came in, and we figured teachers, as they were going through the curriculum painstakingly to make sure everything was there, would tell us. So what it leads me to believe is maybe that isn't happening, that
Right.
people are actually looking through what the application says we're supposed to be doing and doing it. That's where my concerns lie. And then that's why I think if we all try to swim the same direction, it's, you've got to go back to the root documents, right? This is the foundational document of our school, all of that on the back table. And so until people start to at least get their sections out of there that pertain to them, we can't literally be on the same page. And so that's what we identified with the Board of Ed. I know some folks will omit the way we phrase it, but really that is our biggest issue, is making sure people really understand what that is. And this is the beginning of that, maybe I underestimated the degree to which, people understood that. And I'm sure all of us did, but it's become, clearer and clearer that as Leslie Mansfield warned me years ago, she started the first charter school in Maryland, and there's the Montessori one that's here. She said, you cannot talk enough about your mission and vision. And that's clearly true, like,
I mean, our focus was on content and putting together lessons,
right.
you know, because
Right.
our curriculum was so sketchy. I mean, we had to purchase books, we had to do that kind of stuff.
Well, and stuff like that is curious to me, and we can take that offline,
Right.
but we believe we provided everything that was needed, and if there's something that's missing, we'd like to know what wasn't provided. Like the Story of the World has lots of exercises and references to books you can go check out libraries, so we'd like to, I think you and I talked at the last meeting.
Our library doesn't have all those books, so you have to go to the public library,
Right.
and then you have late fees, so I just use it to purchasing them, it's just what teachers do. But in the beginning, it's like, do I want this, do I not want this? I try it out first, and after the first year, now I know what I want and what I need, and I'm supplementing. But that was the focus, it wasn't the focus of reading that document behind sitting in Zatara. Now it is, now I'm ready.
And also, I think some instructional things that we could do is, I mean, I think you did a really excellent job with your presentation tonight. But I think some structural things we could do is like how it's being videotaped right now, have that in some downloadable document and/or literally a DVD. So a new parent comes to the school, you have this, and their DVD. This is for you because you're a new parent. So now you don't have to spend the night going through that. They can do that on their own time. So when they come, now it's about how can you get involved in Carline? How can you join a committee? How can you get involved and how can you be part of that triangle for your kid? Because the time we're spending now is more in connection and community and how do you incorporate yourself in that triangle and be an active part of it? And if you're not, why not? And then find that out. And as a teacher, you're a teacher. Here's your book, here's your required reading in your packet. And we kind of create those modules.
We did that.
as we
Every
go
teacher
forward.
gets a letter when they join with the required reading
Force
list.
them to read it.
Yeah.
Right.
I mean, you guys know, it's a long list of with books and citations, and that happens.
Can't check it.
And then every parent does get a packet from admissions that references the schools we need and says that's the book you should read. So we are doing some of those things. We are going to add videos to the mix because a lot of people like to watch videos, so we are going to do that. But I agree with you. We have done some of those things already, and we'll continue to do them, but we're going to try to add the videos to it and see if that helps. I like the idea of it like a CD or USB or something that we give folks, or maybe just links on the website to YouTube. Because I think a lot of folks get it more from a presentation than reading the document.
And it's also something you can then do when kids go to bed.
And the application's online, right? It's been online for years, even before school started. All right, do you have any more questions for either of us?
Well, I got a series of them. Tell me if you want me to take some of these offline.
Does anyone else have questions, or do you want to hear this? All right, well, go ahead, ask a couple and then.
Volunteer involvement. At the Montessori school, my youngest went to Monaco Valley Montessori briefly, and they really pounded into parents over and over again. Part of the deal for your kid coming in here, parent involvement. We need to log your hours. What's the percentage do you think of parents being involved?
It's a very small number of people that consistently show up.
Over and over again.
Yeah. Thank you.
Yeah.
I think the school's being run by about 30 or 40 parents that typically show up.
How many families do we have?
Well, there's 360 kids, so
Right.
let's assume average 2 kids, right? So that'd be 180, but I think it's more like 225.
Count the car line.
Yeah, you'd have to count the
I
Well,
just
but-
got the impression they did a very good job getting parents out because they just pounded them over and over again and said, you have to do this. Technically have to, but that's part of the deal of being involved in the school. So I don't know if and it seemed like that got ingrained into their culture, maybe.
Yeah, I think, didn't we, I'm trying to think if I know we were asking at one point for parents to sign something about volunteering, but I don't know.
With the
Yeah, there's a
Montessori,
contract,
before you
but-
even fill out the application, you have to read and say that yes, you will volunteer so many hours.
Right.
Which I felt like when we signed the student handbook page.
Yeah, I thought
and
that's
sent it back
what
in,
that said.
I felt like it was in there during presentations when we went to learn about the school before it was
It
in the
was.
building.
Yeah.
So to me, I came in with the mindset of, I need to be able to volunteer this amount for me and my husband. Am I gonna be able to do that? That was my mindset before I even put my name, my son's name in the lottery. However, not everybody's coming in with that mindset, and the people that don't have it aren't coming to the things where we're preaching it over and over. The people that are coming are the ones that are already doing it. So then they're getting tired of coming out and listening to us sit up at a table up there saying, you need to come out and volunteer. Oh, well, you guys are the ones who come out and volunteer. So it's very difficult to get that word out. And
But if you as parents would put some peer pressure on your friends,
Yes. Right.
that would be wonderful.
You know, and you guys who are volunteering, I mean, that's like the heavy duty stuff, you know, I mean, Mrs. Brown and I are looking for parents who will look at the homework at night with the kids. You know, I have some children that come back with their scribbled handwriting and they're crying because they can't do it themselves. And after I've taught them, if I don't get 15 to 20 minutes of practice at night, when they come back in, you know, if they're just copying down the answers because we go over the homework, it's not gonna work. And then those children are the ones who are getting the D's and F's and they're crying and it's that vicious circle. And we get to the motivation begins with success. I can't get there. I cannot get there without
Well,
parent
it
help.
goes back to you.
Well, and the school's gonna try to take on some of that. We will never be anyone's parent, right?
Right.
That's not our role. We're not the primary educator. We only assist parents at achieving their goals for
Yeah,
their kids.
yeah.
Well, I mean,
But
But I'm just saying.
Laura
actually,
Millar's
there's a
gonna
level.
start, and is already, they're gonna do some tutoring and start to make that part of something that parents do after school.
well, what she said about the parent even in November, and it was a commitment. She said we had to sit and decide if we were gonna jump in or not, because it wasn't just our kids going to school, it was the family. Like you're saying, it has to be a family commitment. And I know, like, probably at your school, the classical school I knew down in Georgia was much, you had to say you were gonna come in so many hours, and you had to pledge that you were coming in. I don't know how they dock the parents or whatever, but the parents had to commit to coming in, but that's the beauty of a private school too versus.
Well, we're fighting the overall cultural
Yeah, it's a
climate
culture
is
thing.
a
If you're competing with
service
hockey
provider.
And soccer and Boy Scouts and Girl Scouts and everything, and if you do
What
one or
level
two things,
activity?
it's fine, but some of my kids have got 5 things going on, I'm like, holy smokes, I can't keep up with that.
Yeah, the level of activity is one part, but then there's also just the idea that we're a service provider.
Mhm.
And it's not about creating a community, you drop them off, you pick them up, and
Yeah.
that's what you do.
Yeah.
And then done.
You're a babysitter
Right,
while they work.
Yeah.
right. I mean, that's, unfortunately for some, that's,
That is true.
with the lack of volunteering, it's hard not to
And
interpret.
then they're the ones that actually give the message to the child, this is ridiculous, I can't believe this is expected in 2nd grade, and then the child comes in and says that aloud, and then the other children are thinking, well, maybe I shouldn't have done my homework last night, you know, so it's very bizarre.
Yeah, I've actually been tempted over the last 2 years to start, like, give me a list of the folks that aren't showing up, and I want to call them and say, hey, we'd like you to be a part of the school, can you
He's
kind
not
of?
just tempted, he
He
called
probably will.
us and told us to go through the directory and start calling people that aren't on this computer list, and I'm like, I am not gonna call these people that I don't.
So I will
know.
probably end up doing it.
Parent.
Parent pressure.
Peer pressure.
Peer pressure for 12
Well, maybe that's
kids,
something
and they're
teachers,
all into
you know,
it.
you do probably already somewhat.
Well, we
Okay.
have to be very, like Mrs. Brown said, we have to be very careful with what we say. We cannot do that. That'll be an email to the principal and out the door.
Well, if the school as a whole decides to do it, then it'll just be.
Yeah, but I'm just saying, I thought you were saying the teachers want us to do it, it's like, we have to dance very carefully.
Yeah, and that's one of the things that goes away, right, with, in a like a normal charter outside of Maryland, that you set the.
Always comes back to that now.
Well, I know people think I overemphasize that, but there is an upper bound of what we will achieve due to the law, that's the reality. So. But hopefully within that, we can still achieve more than we are now.
Oh, I'm sorry, you had a whole list of questions,
Yeah,
sorry.
you did.
Oh, sorry.
I'm not.
Sorry.
Oh, no, that's the point in the conversation started. You touched on the law in that recently passed. How much influence do the elected officials have? Could they allow the independence that you're seeking
Yes.
if they choose to do so?
Yeah.
They,
Like pretty much every other state, they could do that.
so they could literally give you all the independence
All,
you.
if Governor Hogan's bill had passed, we would have everything we wanted, with everything.
In its original form.
In its original form. That would have been given us, in the ranking of laws, we're an F. We actually are the first state ever to have gone from any law, any ranking, to being worse. We're the only state in the union that has ever made its law worse. It's not good. I mean, seriously, ever, in the 22 years of charter schools in this country, we're the only state that's ever made its law worse. So that's on the elected officials for having done it, and Governor Hogan for signing. All they would have had to have done is pass the original bill. We would have gone from an F to about a C to C plus in the rankings, and that would have been mainstream enough a law that we would have had everything that you hear us talk about. We don't have, we would have had it. It still wouldn't be an A or a B, but it would have been a mainstream law.
But now that the law is passed and the Board of Education has the control, is it a matter of the superintendent and the Board of Education elected officials being pro-charter, that will allow you the independence that you need, or are they
No.
already so limited?
So it's illegal in Maryland for us to have our own employees. Illegal. We're the
So,
only,
regardless.
we're one of 3 states that actually makes it illegal. It's illegal to have an online charter school in Maryland. Nobody does, I mean, no one makes it illegal. It's very rare, right? So those are 2 changes that just happened. The majority of the states in the country have online charter schools. I'm not saying it's for everybody, but it should be allowed. And in terms of the employment, again, 90% of the charters in the country allow you to have your own employees. That's sort of the point. Like, you're operating a school, but you're borrowing someone else's employees. It's a very weird, odd, awkward situation. Like you said many times, who's in charge and what's your role? It's very confusing the way it's arranged.
Why did you guys decide to go through FCPS? Why didn't you just go and then hire us a direct out? Why did you do
It's
that?
against the law for us to hire a direct out.
So you can't start a charter school in the state? Well, it'd be private is what it would be.
Yeah, in anywhere else, you can start a charter school.
A public charter school?
Yeah, there's no such thing as private charter school. They're all public.
Okay,
That's a union thing that they all say.
okay.
Yeah. So a charter school, which
Okay.
are inherently public, 90% of them, you go and you hire your employees on a time frame that you set, based on criteria that you set. You control the salary scales. It's
See,
an
'cause that makes sense,
independently
but see,
run
all of
school.
us either came over from FCPS or came, through FCPS.
Right, exactly. By law.
And that umbrella is comforting.
Yes, to some.
For us.
To some,
Well,
yes.
to some, but yeah,
Most charter
to myself,
schools-
it is comforting.
And many of our staff feel the same way.
Yeah.
Most
And the
people
struggle
who
is that
join.
we as staff, I have not seen, the confidence there. That's the thing. I mean, the first year when I started working here, I used to read my own toilet paper.
Right.
I mean, that's a little bizarre.
But do you know why? It's not an issue of the umbrella organization, it's the opposite.
Okay.
If we have the authority to direct the principal to fix things immediately, or consequences will happen, right? And we knew about the toilet paper, right? They would happen. That's the benefit of a charter school. So unfortunately, it's giving charter schools a bad name in Maryland, because people like charter schools, they're actually worse because they can't, it's harder sometimes to get things done. Right, because we have this weird law that makes it actually harder. A normal charter school is freed from all those administrative burdens, and they typically, well, they're not typically, almost always are known for being responsive, fixing problems quickly. Everyone's kind of swimming the same direction, because you know why? If you're an employee of an organization, now your interests are aligned with the organization's interests and the parents' interests. The triangle is all swimming the same way. But we have teachers that literally will say during the interview, well, I kind of want to try this out for a couple of years. Okay, we don't want you to be here for a couple of years. We want you to be here for like a decade, right? That's our interest, because it takes a while. You have to be really committed to this. So when you have employees that can transfer in and out, and sometimes will be forced upon you, our interests are not aligned, and it's not good for anybody. And like we said, there's a lot of good stuff we can do in terms of employee compensation, flexible working, all that stuff that's available everywhere else that's not available here. And again, most of the problems and challenges that we have faced are us in an appropriate fashion, kicking and screaming behind the scenes saying X, Y, and Z has to be fixed. And then people saying, why isn't X, Y, Z being fixed? And we've been kicking and screaming about it for months. And if we actually had the authority to direct it to be done, it would have been fixed. And then people say, oh, I get it, charter schools can fix things faster. But unfortunately, you're kind of getting the opposite impression because, right. But that's, again, it's all due to the law. It's not, there have been no issues raised at any board meetings or by staff members that the board was not already kicking and screaming for months in those cases to fix something. We just don't have the authority to make it happen. But there's still a lot we can do within the limits that we have, and we're going to try to do that.
So, my son was just accepted here, and he's 5, so he's going to start here in kindergarten. No, we're very excited, and that's why this is the first session I attended. He was in the lottery. He was #1 on the waiting list, so I never attended anything because I didn't want to be disappointed in case he didn't get it. I'm hearing a lot of struggles and a lot of challenges.
That's right.
Not completely, but certainly it puts a different perspective on what I had envisioned before I came tonight as to what the charter school is and what it would be like. So the idea and the philosophy, I'm completely on board with. I was born and raised in the Eastern culture, and that sounds very similar to that. But it seems like you have a lot more restrictions placed on you than and with a smaller budget than what the public schools have. So then how are you going to strive? How are the kids supposed to strive? I don't know what services are not available to them because the budget is smaller.
Well, the special ed is available to them. I mean, all that stuff, there aren't any services that they're denied. What we're saying, that except for like transportation, they charge us for transportation, but they don't give us transportation service or dollars. So there's nothing in denial of services for sure. But you're right, we have to do more with less. I mean, sorry, I think I cut off your question. But
No, so I was saying, so the teachers that are here, you know, it's commendable that they are taking time outside of their working hours to come here and have genuine and honest discussions about the shortcomings or the positives. But it certainly seems like what I will probably expect is a constant struggle as a parent to see some of the things that I think the charter schools really benefit from not actually being available to the kids.
That's exactly right. And that's why we have emphasized, and some would argue overemphasized, our advocacy of improving the law, because the secret sauce that makes charter schools work is freedom and fairness, fair funding, and we don't have either of those, and that's the challenge.
Can you
So,
guys
what parents come for is the curriculum.
Right.
Thanks, guys, for coming. So what parents come for is the curriculum, and that was something we were able to control, so that's good. But the implementation, we don't have control. I mean, we oversee it, but we can't really say, go fix X, Y, and Z. We can say it, sometimes we do, but it doesn't mean we have any authority.
It's a recommendation, right? You
Right.
can't
It's a
enforce anything
recommendation,
onto the
right.
teachers and certainly.
So if you're familiar with charters work, how they work anywhere else, Maryland's a totally different state.
Yeah,
And let me just piggyback on that too.
sorry.
So I received an email from a parent at my school. We had just done some for testing, and he was concerned. It's like, my daughter's science score went down, and I'm really worried about this and what's going on. And so I looked at that, and I was like, yeah, it did go down. And I was going through some of the potential reasons why and how we could address that in the future. And then his son took the national Latin exam, and he wasn't pleased that his score was high enough. And I said, okay, well, you know, that was his first time taking it. So I said, now that we've seen these problems, we've, you know, narrowed in, taken the microscope, we've taken, you know, and disseminated all of this to try and figure out good solutions. And then I said, and now go back and look at this Stanford test. I said, you pointed out the one sub-test. There was reading, there was math, there was listening, there was language arts, there was spelling, there was social studies, there was all of this complete battery. I said, in every other place, your daughter improved. Let's look at the Latin exam. This was the first time taking it. We do Latin twice a week. He scored what you would expect for someone who could take Latin twice a week versus a class that would have it every single day, as someone would expect. I said, and next year you're going to get the rest of that. And on his Stanfords, he excelled in everything. So the idea of these meetings and others is to bring in the microscope and to take a look and see where can we improve, because we can never be satisfied. And there are many places to improve, but then you also need to look at the places that are excelling and you know, exceeding expectations. So like the two teachers who are here today. So for a new parent, I just want to offer that to you as well, that we do want to take that microscope and look and make sure that we're, and in some cases, you don't even need a microscope, you know, but the idea here is also to celebrate success and also just to welcome you.
And our younger grades are great. It's just the older they're right. I mean, you have so many kids coming from so many different areas, but I think our younger grades are fabulous. And look at this as a building blocks.
Right.
Get the basis here, even if you don't stay, hopefully you will stay, because everything's going to improve every year. But you're building blocks. They're getting things they're going to need for the rest of their life here.
Right.
I mean, it's a great
I
thing.
mean, it's still better than what you'll get at a regular public school. I can stand by that. The issue for me as one of the original founders is what keeps me up at night is the gap between what we could be and what we are. We're a good school. I just want us to be great, and we're not great yet. And that literally keeps me up at night. How do we get to be great?
And I have a kindergartner, and I don't have older kids in the school, but I have a kindergartner and I'm on board, so I do have more of an insight on some of the things that are going on that somebody who just drops their kid off at the car line and goes home doesn't necessarily have. I have complete open communication with my son's teacher and with the other kindergarten teacher. I've walked into her class and to drop something off, and watched her do something, and she's like, and they're just very welcoming, and you can always ask them questions, or, my son, I didn't like the way his reading was going this last term, and I said, hey, what can I do, at home, how can I improve this? And we have a reading specialist, so like, there's lots of different chains that you can go to, as long as you're proactive with it. I think a lot of our teachers do, want to help the students, they want to encourage the students, they care about this, the education. It is, obviously in the older grade, it's kind of hard when you have people coming in all over the place. But I do think that we are, I have a stepdaughter in Lewistown, and I do know that we are better than the average school around the corner, I would say. She watches my son, she's like, he's doing that? She's like, I didn't learn that until 3rd grade. No, actually, I didn't learn that till, it was 3rd, whatever, or 4th grade, or I just started that this year, and he's doing, like, things like that, and she's almost 5.
We have 5th graders doing
So-
pre-algebra. I mean, we have things that are good. It's just challenges we're still better than the average FCPS school, but there's still so much more that can be done. There's enormous potential here. And I think once we get everyone, understanding all of these things, which takes a while, we'll get better and better. We are definitely better this year than last year, and I think that will continue. I'm really curious to see our park testing and where that ends up this year. Last year we did very well in our first year.
And the fact that you're here speaks volumes too.
Yeah, I mean, I completely agree in the triangle, and I've been very involved. Again, he's 5, and I'm involved, my wife and I have both been involved in his, if you can even call it studies, but we're one of those parents who go to his pre-K and give him writing homework, let him practice writing and let him practice math. And so we've always been involved. I certainly grew up that way with my parents being that way in India. So it is exciting. It's also good to hear, some of the realities and some of the challenges that are faced.
It's a real school. You're going to have this challenges in any school.
Yeah.
Even an established classical school will have different challenges.
Right.
There's gonna
I think I came in with a little bit more for the rose-tinted glasses, like, oh, this is,
Like those right on.
Yeah.
Right. What is good though, because then the parents that quickly realize that and want to help work to make it great. Again, we're not a failing school, we're a good school. But we need everyone's help to become great, and that is hard. Achieving excellence is significantly harder than achieving pretty good.
Right.
So we're pretty good right now.
The nice thing though is that we do have a big core group of people that want to achieve the excellence. So that's why when we sit here or at the board meeting or wherever and we nitpick over this should be this way kind of thing, it's more of us just overly caring, which you can't, I can't see that as a
Startup,
failure.
5 years.
Yeah, that's what Dr. Perry
5
said.
years for startup. I mean,
Yeah.
any business, and this is a business, so
Right.
5 years.
Okay.
All right, any other questions?
Thank you.
We'll let everybody pick up.
Thank you.
Well, thank you guys. I'll handle yours. Yeah.
Love kindergarten stars.
Yeah. Steve, you want to call your audience as I'm shutting down?